Marcus sat across from a woman he'd never met, his heart pounding as she leaned forward and whispered words that made his breath catch. "I'm not here for a date," she said softly, her eyes already glistening. "I'm here to say thank you for saving my brother's life." He stared at her, completely frozen, because he had absolutely no idea what she was talking about. Before we continue with this incredible story, I'd love it if you'd subscribe to Sage Stories and hit that like button. We share these powerful moments of kindness and human connection because they remind us what truly matters. Drop a comment below and let us know your thoughts as this story unfolds. Marcus had been single for 2 years, and honestly, he'd made peace with it. At 31, he'd thrown himself into his work as a high school history teacher in a quiet suburb outside Chicago. His friends, however, had not made peace with his single status. They'd been pestering him for months to try dating apps, set him up on blind dates, anything to get him back out there. So when his college buddy Trevor called saying he knew someone perfect for Marcus, someone who loved history and old movies just like he did, Marcus reluctantly agreed to meet her for coffee. The coffee shop Trevor suggested was a cozy place downtown, the kind with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Marcus arrived 10 minutes early, ordered a black coffee, and sat by the window, watching people pass by on the sidewalk. He'd worn his nicest sweater, the navy one his sister said brought out his eyes, and he'd even gotten a haircut that morning. His palms were sweating despite the October chill, and he kept rehearsing conversation starters in his head. When the door opened and a young woman walked in, scanning the room nervously, Marcus raised his hand in a small wave. She was petite, with dark hair pulled back in a ponytail, wearing jeans and a gray jacket. She spotted him and walked over, but something in her expression made Marcus pause. She didn't look excited or even particularly nervous in a first date way. She looked like she was carrying something heavy. She sat down across from him without ordering anything, and that's when she said those words that turned his entire afternoon upside down. Marcus just stared at her, his coffee growing cold between his hands. "I'm sorry," he finally managed. "I think there's been some kind of mistake." Trevor said this was I thought we were. "I know what Trevor told you," she interrupted gently. "And I'm so sorry for the confusion. My name is Lily Chen, and I needed to meet you, but I didn't know how else to do it. Trevor's girlfriend is my roommate, and when I told her I was trying to find you, she said Trevor could help set up a meeting." She took a shaky breath. "4 months ago, my brother Daniel was in a dark place. The darkest place. And you talked to him one afternoon in the park, and you saved his life." Marcus felt like the room was spinning. 4 months ago. The park. He suddenly remembered a warm June day when he'd gone to Lincoln Park to grade papers on a bench under his favorite oak tree. There had been a young guy, maybe 19 or 20, sitting on the next bench over, staring at nothing. Something about the kid's posture, the emptiness in his eyes, had struck Marcus. He'd seen that look before in some of his students, that dangerous kind of hollow sadness. Marcus had debated whether to say anything, not wanting to intrude, but something in his gut told him to speak up. So he'd closed his grad e-book and said something simple, something that probably sounded stupid. "Hey man, I don't mean to bother you, but are you doing okay?" The kid had looked at him with such surprise, as if he'd been invisible and suddenly someone had seen him. They'd started talking. Marcus couldn't even remember everything they'd discussed. School stress, family pressure, feeling like nothing would ever get better. The kid mentioned he was pre-med, drowning under expectations. Marcus told him about his own struggles in his 20s, about the year he'd almost dropped out of grad school, about the teacher who'd believed in him when he didn't believe in himself. They'd talked for over an hour. When they parted ways, Marcus had scribbled his email on a piece of paper and told the kid to reach out if he ever needed someone to talk to. The kid had nodded, pocketed the paper, and walked away. Marcus had thought about the conversation a few times afterward, hoping the kid was all right, but he'd never heard from him again. Now, sitting across from Lily, the weight of what she was saying began to sink in. "Daniel told me later that he'd gone to the park that day to say goodbye to the world," Lily said, tears now streaming down her face. "He had a plan. He was going to go through with it that evening. But then you talked to him. You treated him like a person, like someone worth knowing. You shared your own struggles, and for the first time in months, he didn't feel completely alone." Marcus felt his own eyes burning. Is Daniel okay now?" Lily nodded, pulling out her phone to show him a photo. A young Asian guy with glasses and a bright smile, his arm around Lily, both of them laughing. "He's doing so much better. He took a gap year, started therapy, and he's back in school now, but studying education instead of medicine. He actually wants to be a teacher because of you. He talks about that conversation all the time, about how you made him feel seen. I didn't do anything special, Marcus said quietly, his voice cracking. I just talked to him. That's exactly what made it special, Lily said. You didn't have to. You were a complete stranger. You could have just gone back to your work, but you chose to see him, to care, to share your time and your story. You chose kindness when Daniel needed it most. She reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. Daniel wanted to write you a letter. He tried to find you for weeks, but he only knew your first name was Marcus and that you were a teacher. Then last month, my roommate mentioned her boyfriend's friend Marcus who teaches history, and something clicked. When she showed me your picture from Trevor's Instagram, Daniel confirmed it was you. Marcus opened the envelope with trembling hands. The letter inside was 3 pages long, written in careful handwriting. Daniel thanked him for that day in the park, for treating a stranger's pain as something that mattered. He wrote about his journey through therapy, about discovering what he actually wanted from life rather than what he thought he should want. He wrote about the teacher he'd become friends with at his new school, a mentor who reminded him of Marcus. And at the end, he wrote something that made Marcus have to set the letter down for a moment to collect himself. You taught me that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply show up for another person's pain. You didn't try to fix me or give me all the answers. You just sat with me and showed me I wasn't alone. I'm paying that forward now, every day, and I'll keep paying it forward for the rest of my life. Thank you for giving me a rest of my life to live. When Marcus looked up, Lily was smiling through her tears. He wanted to come today too, but he thought it might be too overwhelming. He's hoping maybe you'd be willing to meet him for coffee sometime, a real coffee, not a fake blind date. Marcus laughed, wiping his eyes. I would love that. And Lily, thank you for finding me. I've thought about your brother so many times, wondered if he was okay. I'm so grateful he's here, that he's thriving. They talked for another hour, Lily sharing stories about Daniel's transformation, Marcus telling her more about that day in the park and why he'd felt compelled to speak up. When they finally stood to leave, Lily hugged him tightly. You gave our family the most precious gift, she whispered. You gave us more time with Daniel. There aren't words big enough for that kind of thank you. As Marcus walked home that evening, the autumn leaves crunching under his feet, he thought about all the moments in life when we're faced with a choice. We can look away, stay in our own bubble, assume someone else will help. Or we can choose to see each other, really see each other, and offer whatever small kindness we have to give. Sometimes it's just a conversation. Sometimes it's just showing up. And sometimes that's everything. What Marcus had thought was just an ordinary afternoon 4 months ago had been anything but ordinary for Daniel. And now, knowing the impact of that simple choice to speak up, Marcus felt something shift inside him. We never really know what someone else is carrying, what private battles they're fighting, what difference a moment of genuine human connection might make. The story of Marcus and Daniel reminds us that kindness doesn't always look like grand gestures or dramatic rescues. Sometimes it's just noticing when someone seems lost and choosing to say hello. It's sharing your own struggles so someone else feels less alone. It's treating a stranger's pain as worthy of your time and attention. These small acts of seeing each other, of showing up for one another's humanity, they ripple outward in ways we might never fully know. But they matter. They always matter. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. And tell us in the comments about a time when someone's kindness made a difference in your life, or when you showed up for a stranger. Because every one of these moments adds more light to the world, and we could all use a little more light.